We use a JCB, so it's like a large tractor, a front load tractor, to mix up all of our cobs. So we do about 20 tons a session, and so we'll literally mix up about 20 tons a go and then feed off that, and it takes us about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to go through about 20 tons. And so we're literally, with a pitchfork, taking big scoops from the pile and placing it onto the wall and positioning it, scooping it, positioning it. And so we're not actually using our hands, we're actually using a utensil, a tool, to actually pick it up and do that. We find that it's much quicker, but you don't have the same interaction that you normally would, you know, with actually picking it up with your hands and mixing it by your feet. You know, it's a different connection that you have with the material. But then, you know, having said that, we do smaller projects where we'll mix all the product, all the cob by foot. And so we'll do it all by foot, barefoot, and using our hands for doing the earthen plasters. So like Katie said, we're trying to marry the two sort of styles together. But when we first came, it was all mixing by tractor and all by pitchfork.
But I think the main difference is that you know, we mix for the projects, the big projects that we do, we mix with a machine because commercially it's just not viable to mix every, you know, the cost of us standing there trumping each mix.
The time is just
so it's not commercially viable, and also, you know, sort of on a level of sustainability of our bodies and ourselves. If you know, if you're doing a big project and there's just the two of us and we have to mix it all by foot, you know, we'd be wrecked and we'd have no energy to do anything. And also another big difference is that the cob here, there's this natural layer of shale, which is the aggregate that we use to mix in. It's just above the subsoil layer, and that's very sharp and stony, and so you actually can't mix it up with bare feet.
It'll tear up your feet. So
yeah.
really cut it up.
So like Adam said, it's a different relationship with the material, really. But we do, when we do smaller projects, and sometimes there are projects that are logistically challenged that you can't actually get machinery down into. And then that's wonderful because we have that skill of being able to do it with our feet.
Mix it all by foot, and yeah, there have been different occasions where we've been building on a very steep slope, and there's no way, like Katie said, to actually bring in a JCB or anything. And so we'll just try and source it as locally as possible. So we'll just try and source the clay, dig it up, and then just mix it by foot, and that's just been invaluable to have those skills.
I think as well we don't use the cobbler's thumb, I don't know, that Ianto does, that we were trained to do. I mean, the way that we could, because when you use a pitchfork, what you do is you compact it with a pitchfork head, so you sort of compact it all together. So I guess when you're using your hands, you can't do that, so hence you need sort of, that's the Ianto's philosophy of the cobbler's thumb, sewing all the straw together. But we do it by compaction more than sort of sewing it all together, so that's another difference.
Yeah. We also stand on top of the walls, walk on top of the wall, try and compress it from the top, so it'll actually splooge out, and then we trim it back.
We also have a different, something that I know that, something which I think is a British thing, a traditional British thing, is we have something called a thwacker, which is a big sort of caveman, sort of like a tree trunk, sawn tree trunk. It's like you could also use a cricket bat. And they used to, when the wall is sort of green hard, you sort of stand on top of the wall and you compress it with this big sort of tree trunk.
Actually
to
smack
compress
it
all to the size.
And so you get a smooth finish, and also makes it more of a plumb line.
And blends all the different lifts together, all the different layers together. So that's another difference. I think when we came, we definitely, I wouldn't say we struggled, but we definitely, when we first set up the company, and like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the time here, we're not working in the backwoods with a group of nice, like-minded people. Quite often we're working on a building site where, especially with restoration projects, where we're brought in because the council or the conservation officers have said that this part of the building must be put back in the traditional way. So a lot of the time we're working amongst conventional builders, and that was certainly, continues to be sometimes now, but certainly in the beginning when we were, you know, a little bit more sort of intimidated by that, it was quite tough because we'd come in and first of all you had an American and then a woman on the building site, which are two things that were alien species to them. So we had that barrier to get over for a start, and then we were doing something that kind of took 10 times longer than they just knock it down and whack it up a concrete block. And so, you know, plus, you know, in Cornwall, the Cornish, they're a little bit more separated from the rest of the country, and so there's sometimes a little bit more...
They can be quite cliquish.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
People who are outsiders, and it takes a couple of generations for people to actually come in to a village, to be accepted into a village.
So in that sense, we were received rather sort of sceptically.
Yeah, for the first year,
we really had to work very hard to kind of... It was tough. So yeah, we knew that Prince Charles was... it sort of has an interest in eco-building and sort of organic gardening, organic vegetable production. So we wrote to him and told him what we were doing, and not really expecting to get a response. I mean, we just thought we'd put it out there, and you know, if nothing came back, then that was fine. And actually he responded very positively and invited us to go out to see him at Highgrove, which is his house, and spend some time with him and just tell him what we were doing. And so we obviously accepted the offer, went out one very cold February afternoon and talked with him in his house, and then he took us around his garden. And he actually has a little sort of, he's very interested in Greek Orthodox religion, and he has this sort of earth sanctuary, I think it's earth block sanctuary in his garden. And so he wanted to share that with us and show us that, and it was a really it
was a beautiful building, there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
To go in there, and
sacred space.
And he'd actually brought together a whole load of craftspeople, someone, a stained glass craftsperson, and someone that had done some beautiful wood carvings, and he sort of brought them all together in this one little building.
Made a little chapel.
Yeah. It was a really wonderful experience, and you really feel like he's kind of behind what we're doing, and it was really great. Anything else to add?
We met the Queen.
Okay. That's kind of interesting. How did that come about?
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess that's his mom.
Yeah.
That was at, I guess that was in 2003. We got an award called the Pioneers Award. And so which was completely out of the blue. That was another thing that just kind of astounded us. You know, we're just working away doing very simple building techniques, and somehow I got this award from the Queen, and she invited us to come to Buckingham Palace. And so we spent the evening at Buckingham Palace with a bunch of other people, and she just said that she was very interested in what we're doing and reviving traditional skills and traditional crafts. And
it is amazing how it helps when, you know, and you've got someone and you explain to them what you do, and they kind of like, they're a bit sort of like weird, you know, wacky people living in the clouds. And then if you tell, you know, unfortunately, if you tell people something like that, it makes them kind of sit up and listen. And actually, it's good for COB because it makes people take it more seriously, because unfortunately they reckon, well, if the Queen's going to take it seriously, then it's worth being taken seriously. And so it's quite a powerful statement, actually. I'd always been anti-monarchy before I got that invitation, and then I was excited.
It's funny, isn't it, how it can just change?
How fickle and shallow you are, Miss Bryce, because it was like, yeah, the Queen. And
you always
before that I was like,
talk trash about her.
Yeah. The Queen.
It's an interesting, dynamic right there, the human nature, isn't it?
I saw myself in my truest colours. I wasn't who I thought I was.
Horrible.
Oh, no. But no, it is, what I was saying, it's a powerful statement, you know, so I think we can use that to our advantage, and if it makes people take it more seriously, then, you know, that's a positive thing.
Exactly, especially with people who are dealing with sort of hierarchy, and people who are in the sort of governmental system and building system, you know, they do sort of perk up a bit. You know, if they know that we're dealing with those sort of people, you know, they'll take it a bit more seriously, especially when comes to building codes